Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Nations race in the Super Formula cars at Suzuka. Now in this race I did forget to press the record button while I was live streaming, so I apologise, it's actually taken from the replay, but still wanted to upload to show you how this race went, give you an idea of the result we got. Managed to qualify pretty well considering this race we didn't really have any practice. I think we did one practice session the night before, which ended in total disaster because we got hit from behind and it wrecked our practice, but it wasn't really that important anyway. Next day we had one little race before we went live. This was our second proper race and qualified P3, so really happy with that, ahead of some very fast drivers in high downforce cars. Although high downforce does tend to suit myself, but I didn't expect to qualify in the top three, obviously with the fact that we hadn't really warmed up for this one. We just jumped into it because I know that I tend to perform well in these cars. I'm just looking for picking up a reasonable result. Now in this race we had to run the medium compound tyre. You had the softs and the medium available, so you had to do one stint, whether that was 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps, whatever you decided to do, you had to do that or you run the risk of picking up a 20-second penalty. So if you have been picking up 20-second penalties, it's because you've not been running the compulsory tyre. Not every race is having this compulsory tyre, but there are a select few that is making you choose a certain tyre. I think the next race we have to use soft, mediums and hard, which should be really interesting. I'm actually looking forward to that race. Should be some strategy bringing into that race. It should be quite fun to be involved with, so make sure we watch that one when it's I think it's next week we do that, as we go through to the back of the grid there. I think in this race again qualified well and we don't get the full grid. One driver disconnected, which dropped the points down a little bit for this lobby. I think it was like 2.8 or 2 points, just under 2.8 for win. P3 where I am now I think it's just under 2.5k possibly, but we'll take that if we can maintain this position. We got Giorgio on the right. We're going to do the start that I always tend to do with these cars is with traction control on level 1, and you'll see me using a bit of the boost button, the push to pass as we call it, the overtake button, which just gives the car a little bit more fuel so it's able to produce a little bit more power as we go down the left hand side, trying to see if we can hang it around the outside of Giorgio here into turn 1. But you can see obviously the inside line there gave Giorgio much more traction, much more grip, and we just sit behind him as I have a little bit of contact there with Manf. I thought we were past him, but just touched the front, no harm done. Manf carries on, we carry on, and we're in P3 now in the notorious dirty air. We talk about this a lot with these high downforce cars. It is extremely difficult to stay anywhere near another car in these high speed, high aero cars, because once you're in that 1.5 second distance, I think around 1.4s you do feel it. Under a second, under 1.2, something like that, it's quite noticeable, and it really does, you lose a lot of front end grip and also getting on the power. You see there Giorgio trying to get the power down, can't quite find the traction because obviously loss of aero, and that is the result of being in someone's slipstream. And that's why we always talk about in races about the loss of aero and the dirty air, which a lot of people talk about, and you know, we get called out for it a lot of the time, but it is very noticeable. I think it's more noticeable in the higher splits when people are driving on the ultimate limit of the track, where you're obviously pushing the maximum speed through the corners and you're trying to do the same thing. You really feel that loss, and it can be quite you can actually use it to your advantage. If, for example, you're in Kalster's position now, sitting in P1, he's able to just look after his tyres. He's going to produce more loss of tyre life to Giorgio, and Giorgio is going to give me more loss of tyre life, and it's a knock-on effect. So for Kalster, he's in the prime position now, in the lead, no dirty air, looking after his tyres, and he's able to just control the pace really, because it's pretty much impossible to overtake someone in these type of cars. You do have the overtake button, which can help you out, and obviously if you have got a lot of extra speed, which I think Giorgio quite possibly did have a little bit more speed. However, being stuck in that dirty air, there's not really much you can do in this situation. You can see we're all, after the first lap, on that opening lap, we're around 1.5, 1.4 from each other. You can see the gap to Kelster to Giorgio probably about a second, myself to Williams Giorgio about 1.4, 1.3 seconds, and just trying to hang in there. To be honest, at this point I was thinking it's probably going to be better for myself just to drop out of that slipstream and sit around 1.5 to 2 seconds, because when you're really close you're just going to wear the tyres out. I've got a car behind me, however it did seem like I was able to pull away from the group behind us. It seems like Calster showing very good pace again in these higher downforce cars, and Giorgio hanging in there as usual. Giorgio always at the front, but P4 and P5 and 6 seem to be a corkscrew in there somewhere, that there seems to be a bit of a gap building up. So this is looking okay for myself. We're not going to we're not going to show you every lap in this race, because there'd be no point just watching the cars drive around. Some of the laps were pretty static in this race, but I just wanted to give you an idea of why I decided to do certain things in this race, because as the title suggests, I went for a 3-stop strategy, and there was probably a 2-stop was probably a good strategy. But what you're going to see is the pit lane loss here was very, very minimal. You didn't really lose any time. It was actually, I think they need to adjust it slightly. So like the loss was around, I think it was around 3 to 4 seconds pit lane loss, considering you're changing tyres in that time the car's supposed to be travelling down the pits. I think it should be moved up to about 7 to 8 second pit lane loss for every track at least. You're still going to get pit strategy involved with these races. I just think that 3 seconds kind of made it a little bit weird. It kind of helped in a way, because you could risk some stuff to, even if you could risk going for that extra stop just in case something happens, as we're now following Giorgio, just trying to stay pretty close. You can see we're just outside that 1.5 second range, but what you can see on the mini map in the top right hand corner, apologies for the no doubters on the screen. Like I say, there's nothing I can do about having no doubters on the left, because I forgot to record. Normally we have the record started at the start of every single race I do on live streams. However, I forgot on this race, only realised at the end, but I think we've got all the other ones we've done recently recorded, so they'll all have the doubter, but this one, no doubter information. But I can tell you that the gap behind was, I think it was around 2.5 seconds at this point, so approaching 3 seconds. Now, I wasn't 100% sure at this stage what gap we actually needed to build up, because this was our first, I hadn't tested any of the gaps for pitting and everything. I think I was asking people on stream, but at this point, how long loss is it in terms of the pits as we jump through to the end of lap 6? And you can see we're coming through to the pit stop phase now, and what you can see on the mini map is the gap has built up quite drastically to P4. We've got nearly a 4-second gap to P4, but we're managing to hang in there to Giorgio and Calster. Calster obviously got about a 1.5 second lead to Giorgio. I'm about 2 seconds behind Giorgio. We're not dropping off the lead like massively. We're staying in there, which is I was quite happy with this, to be fair. I think with a bit more practice running it and getting used to the tyre wear, I could have improved my speed, because I tend to be able to. The first race is pretty solid, that I tend to do when it's a clean one. Then I tend to be able to improve the pace after a few races. But at the moment, sitting in P3, we probably wouldn't race this again if we still maintain this P3 position all the way to the end. As we're going into the pits now, this will be the interesting thing for me, because I did think some people were saying it was around 4 seconds the gap in the pit lane loss. So I wasn't sure if that was true, as Giorgio goes in, Calster stays out. Interestingly, on that lap, he looked like he had a bit of a buffer though, to be fair to Giorgio. But Giorgio is about 1.5 seconds behind, so I was thinking at this stage that Giorgio possibly might be able to get the jump on Calster if he just drives it fairly aggressively, and also if he's got any boost. I think if I was in Giorgio's position at this point now, I would have been using pretty much all my boost up to get the jump on Calster, because it's so important to be in front of the car and give them the dirty air, because it wears their tyres out. I was really not sure whether he'd do that. I think when we were looking at the delta on the live stream, I wasn't actually losing too much time on this outlap to Giorgio. So I think Giorgio also put the softer compound tyre on, like myself. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I believe he did put the softer compound tyre on, same as myself, going for the 6. The theory was 666. Going into this race, that was my plan. I was going to do 6 laps on the soft, 6 laps on the softs again, and then another 6 laps on the medium, because obviously if they can do 6 laps on the softs, there'll be no problem at all doing 6 laps on the mediums. And the mediums weren't terrible. They were a little bit slower, but they were quite consistent, and the loss of grip wasn't as drastic as with the soft tyre, so you could actually make them work reasonably well, as you see coming around to finish this out lap. Now this will be interesting. Has Giorgio done enough? If Calster has to pit on this lap, he can't afford to, he just can't afford to stay out for another lap. You see, he's in the pits now. What Calster does now is, you're going to keep an eye on it, watch the icon for the tyres. It actually goes yellow, so Calster is actually going to put the medium compound tyre on. You saw it there pop up very quickly. And this is going to be so important for Giorgio to see if he can get past. And looking at that, I don't think he might. He doesn't manage to get past Calster. Now, this is where I think that Giorgio could have used up his boost on his lap. Try to gain that extra second, which the boost can give you. Just use it all up and then get in front of Calster. I think Giorgio at this point had the softer compounder tyre, so it was so important that he would have got ahead. Because I think if he would have got past Calster, he could have built himself a little bit of a cushion up. Maybe just a 2-second gap, 1.5, 2-second gap. But that would have been enough to secure himself, enough to then pit, come out ahead possibly like what Calster's done here. So it was interesting that he didn't do that. I don't think he'd, I think he had the push to overtake available, but he chose not to use it. But for me, this is pretty good because it's given me the opportunity to get very close to Giorgio again, almost picking up the slipstream again, because obviously Calster's got to build the heat up in his tyres. And when you come out the pits, the tyres are obviously in good condition, but they tend to be a little bit lacking in temperature, so it takes about half lap, especially in these high downforce cars, just to get the tyres working properly again. Now this stage though, you can see Giorgio's pretty much lost that opportunity to go for a move, so it was a little, I think that Giorgio probably would have been advised to go for that, using all his boost up and going for that move, and I think he could have got the win, secured the win in this race if he had done it. But at the moment, he's trying to put him under pressure. You can see going into the braking zone, they're battling away, and this is all good for me, to be honest, because they're going to be chewing up their tyres, wasting the life in them tyres. I can just sit behind and try and keep it smooth. We've got a comfortable gap behind us. You can see the gap to P4 Marcus there is increasing. It's steadily increasing every lap. It's consistent. He doesn't seem to have an answer for the pace that we're doing on the front three cars in this race. He doesn't seem to have the pace to match this. So I've got myself a nice buffer there, which could become handy. You never know in these races if they have an issue, penalties or something. I've got a gap behind me. It gives me the opportunity to go in and put a fresher set of tyres on or something like that. And that was what was playing on my mind at this point as we're coming through to the end of lap 9. You can see they're starting to build that lead up a little bit. Obviously Calster now on the medium tyre doing a very, very good job actually, because his pace was really strong. This is what I was saying about the medium tyre. It did seem like that medium tyre was not that much slower than the soft compound tyre. I don't know whether with the update to that we've had recently, if they've tried to bring the harder compounds a little bit closer to the, in terms of the range and the speed of them. But round here in these super formula cars, the mediums actually look like they were performing quite well. Giorgio is putting him under a lot of pressure, but you can see that he's able to defend against him. He's got the harder compound tyre on, but he's not losing a drastic amount of time. I'm just sitting here quite happy in P3, to be honest. Just trying to mind my own business, keep it nice and smooth, not destroy the tyres. We need to make these tyres last all the way to lap 12, and just trying to play it calm. And you can see it's going okay for me. Pretty much and not really that much stress involved with my race, because don't seem to have the pace to match Calster and Giorgio, and behind me there's a gap there to P4, but we're managing that and we're pulling away from that car. So I'm just in a bit of no man's land. I think there was faster drivers, you can see behind us as we move on now to the end of lap 10 to start lap 11. You can see Calster goes in the pits here now with their medium tyre, so he's got rid of them very quickly, and this will be interesting. Where is he going to come out now? Because he's probably going to come out behind me. I'm on the soft compound tyre. I don't want to lose too much time by letting him go, because I was trying to build enough of a gap to give myself the cushion for pitting, because I didn't want to go in the pits and run the risk that P4 was on the medium tyre and wasn't going to pit again, because we come out behind a car that's on medium tyres, and even if we're on fresh softs or fresh whatever tyres, we're going to have to put the mediums on for this thing, because we need to get rid of the medium use. It could become very difficult. We saw how frustrating it can be when we were at Dragon Trail, and I was stuck behind Calster, a brand new set of tyres he had tyres that were 3 or 4 laps old, and I couldn't do anything with it. It was just impossible to pass, and that's a situation I didn't want to repeat. So I was just trying to really concentrate on this lap, make sure this is a solid in lap to the pit. You can see Giorgio just ahead there, not too far ahead at all. Giorgio, I think, also on the soft compound, although I wasn't 100% sure. Obviously he pitted that lap later to Calster, so I'm sorry, a lap before Calster, but now he's going to try and extend this stint so that Calster on the medium tyres, will he be able to jump Giorgio? This will be interesting now. And I was trying to keep my pace up, but I didn't want to be involved with a side by side. So I used my boost up here. Now you can see a little bit of the overtake that was left on the car. I decided to use it up down the straight, just so we're not going to be battling into the final corner, and then I can dart off into the pits and give Calster the clean air for the rest of his lap. But I think Calster obviously wants to get past as soon as possible because he's on them fresher tyres. However, I didn't want to be like going side by side and losing time in the corner. So you can see straight into the pits, get this out of the way, let him go and change them tyres as we start lap 12. So in a little bit earlier than what I would have liked. I probably would have liked to have took them tyres to the end of lap 12. However, I decided we'll just get rid of them early because with that situation that was building, I didn't want to be battling with Calster and then picking up his dirty air through the first sector. Decided to get rid of him. Luckily came out with a gap to P4 and got that tyre change done and still ahead of P4. That was a real key part of the race. So now we're in the situation where we have the medium tyres on. We have Marcus behind us. I've got Marcus behind me who still needs to pit, and I'm pulling away on these fresh and medium tyres. So it's all looking very solid for the P3 in this race. It doesn't look like that's going to be on the threat. But what I was thinking now at this point was, is this going to give him the opportunity to... I'm basically going to have a free stop by the time everyone changes their tyres. It looks like I'm going to have the ability to drive... You know, if I want to go for that third stop, it's going to be there as an option. So we're going to skip ahead to the end of lap 14. You can see we've done a lap on the mediums, pretty reasonable lap. It was 39.5, a little bit off pace, but like I say, it wasn't drastically off pace with these tyres. There was potential to be within about 6-7 tenths of the soft tyre. However, they did tend to last. They were lasting a little bit better, so the consistency was a little bit more stable throughout the stint. But I decided we're just going to get rid of these because I've built up a gap. You can see it in that top right hand corner. Just after a few laps on these mediums, only an out lap and one flying lap, and then this in lap. And you can see on the map that basically 3 laps of driving these mediums, I've built myself up enough of a gap to pit again for a fresh set of soft tyres. So I thought we've got nothing to lose here. I'm going to go for this because I'm going to come out back in P3. And if there's any sort of incident up front where they lose a couple of seconds, I could be right behind them with a fresh set of softs versus their mediums and also worn softs. So it could give me a chance to, you know, battle a little bit more because the pace wasn't 100% there. But a fresh set of tyres could be a difference. So I decided to try it. Nothing to lose. Come out the pit and you can see we're easily ahead. Comfortably into P3 still. I think still over 1.5, nearly 2 second lead to P4. So no issues there with the cars behind. We've got a fresh set of softs now. I'll be able to pull that gap out from them fairly comfortably, but now it's about chasing down in a few laps to P1. Now I've only got like 4 laps to see how close I can get. I can see the gap, it is quite high to Calster, I think, in P1 and Giorgio ahead of us. However, these fresh tyres should give me a little bit of extra grip, and if something does go wrong, I might be able to take advantage of that with these nice new soft set of tyres. As you can see them going up the hill there. You saw Giorgio going up just around the corner and Calster a little bit ahead of that. So you can see the gap isn't drastic. You know, this is a 30-minute race near enough. I think might have been over 30 minutes this race. And I'm not massively far behind. So the pace was reasonable. Doing an okay job, sitting in P3. Got a comfortable gap to P4. I think Josette also had pretty similar pace to myself. However, I think he had got caught up with not the best qualifying lap, and then getting caught up in the dirty air, it can ruin your race. I've been there, I know what it's like as we work our way down the back straight, and we've got just a few laps to try and make this work. However, you can see they are quite far ahead, but like I say, nothing to lose with this strategy. Just decided to try it because you never know what could happen. It gives you the little bit of grip in case anything happens, that you've got fresher tyres, and it just makes it a little bit easier, to be honest, rather than driving on the medium tyres all the way to the end. The overall pace was probably, I think it was fairly equal. I think you lose 4 seconds in the pits. However, the tyres were about 6-7 tenths faster. So as we come to the end of lap 17, you can see I've brought that gap down. You can see the gap has increased to the cars behind. Comfortable gap to P4. We can see Giorgio just up ahead there. I think at this point we're about 5.5-6 seconds behind. When we went in the pits, I think I was about 5.2 seconds behind. So it would have been interesting because he was getting held up by Calster. I think his pace was dropping off because Calster's tyres were pretty worn. Maybe I would have finished a little bit closer and I would have been within 2-3 seconds of the lead, but it was one of them, do you risk it and just try it? And I felt like it was worth the chance, because I wasn't going to win. There was no way I was catching all the way up to the lead battle and catching up to Giorgio, so it felt like it was worth the risk. Unfortunately, the risk didn't pay off in a way, but it didn't lose me anything. Still in P3. You can see going through these final corners, you can see how close we actually got it. You can see Kalsa just going up the hill there, and Giorgio just going through the hairpin now. So only about, I think we're about 5 seconds behind at this point. Not a drastic, it was pretty much equal to when I pitted. However, I think I would have caught up a little bit, because I think that at this stage Giorgio was actually a little bit faster than Kalsa, because if we remember, Kalsa was on them softs for quite a long time, and Giorgio was on the mediums, which were going to last longer, and he had obviously doing a shorter stint on them as well. So I think Giorgio could have run the strategy better on this race. I think he could have actually got the jump on Kelster if he would have pitted a little bit earlier on some stints, and also used a bit of his boost up on outlaps to try and get that vital P1 position in these races as we come through to the final chicane in P3. Nothing gained really from the extra pit stop, but we didn't lose anything. You can see the gap was really solid, quite a big gap to P4. Go over the line, I think we ended up finishing about 6-7 seconds behind Kalster and about around 5 seconds behind P2. So not a bad result in the end, and picking up around 2.5k in points, a solid amount of points for the Nations Championship. Obviously it's not the most important this season because it doesn't actually mean much with the FIA for this exhibition season, but we do like to get good results. It's still nice to beat some really fast drivers and pick up a podium in FIA top split racing. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little video. It was worth the free stop. We're going to be doing more video. We've got another video still to get out with regards to the Red Bull ring race that someone did ask about the other day. Possibly some of the worst driving I've ever seen in top split, but quite comical at the same time. So we're going to have a little look at that. I wasn't actually involved with it, but it should be quite entertaining to watch what went on in that race and let you guys see as well, because it's not just the lower splits as driving that can be quite terrible at times. Top split also has that type of driving in, and it was actually quite fun to watch. So we'll be uploading that at another point, and also we've got the recent FIA races to upload. So hope you enjoyed that. We're going to be doing more streams also through the week, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, and click that notification button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone.